Overcommitted and undernurtured is such an important topic to me because I have recognized in my own life, and many times I'm talking to women who have never taken the time to sit down and look at all the things in their life. And it's hard to stop when you've been in this pattern and this belief that you need to care for everyone else before you care for yourself.
Wow, it has everything to do with us overcommitting. I think because we are, whether we're conditioned socially, culturally, familiarly, we are conditioned in all of those ways to take care of others. That's where our worth is.
It was about being able to be in control of the things that I could be in control of, because the rest of my world was uncontrollable. For me, it was very much learned behavior. And so when I start moving into those patterns, it makes it easy for me to move back into taking control, doing all the things that I need to do so that things can try to run smoothly, and sometimes world of chaos.
Your early life conditioning is very influential in who you become later in life, and especially when you're not aware of how that happened. And I think that growing up in the society that many of us grew up in, the pre-2000s, that was very prominent. There was a lot of reward for self-sacrifice. Like the more you gave and the more you did and the more exhausted you were, the more you were rewarded for that.
So for me, the overcommitment isn't just about helping and rescuing and fixing other people. It's doing, creating something or doing something that can be seen in the world. And there's I love being able to see the fruits of my labor, because I can be like, yes, I accomplished something.
Hey everyone, it's Sophia from Sacred You. Thank you so much for being here. A quick message before we dive into today's discussion. You may have been watching our videos, but have not had a chance to hit that subscribe button. So if you have gained value from our conversations, from our channel, it would be so appreciated for us if you would hit that subscribe button below right now and even give us a like. What that means is not only does it allow us to grow our subscriber base, but it also allows us to bring in even more guests for you to listen to. And you will be one of the first ones to be notified. So please hit that subscribe button and let's get started on today's wonderful panel discussion. Welcome to our wonderful panel discussion, which I'm really excited about: overcommitted and undernurtured, a conversation for women who do too much. So my name's Sophia. I have the honor of co-creating Sacred You, and we are privileged to be able to host today's panel discussion that was created by the incredible Dawn. So Dawn, I'm going to hand it over to you, and I just want to acknowledge you first of all for creating this today's panel, and for bringing your wisdom and giving the opportunity for all these other women to share their wisdom in today's topic. So thank you very much, and I will be back very soon.
Thank you so much, Sophia, for the introduction, and I'm honored to be here with all of you today. I want to welcome Hillary as a guest, and then I also want to welcome Michele and Rollie and Barb and Erica for being here and offering your expertise and insight on this topic. Overcommitted and undernurtured is such an important topic to me because I have recognized in my own life as a woman, and just in my personal life and in my professional life, how often I have overcommitted myself and have put my needs behind everyone else's, and especially as a mom. And I've been a nurse for 30 years. So it's really important to discuss this topic. At this time of my life, I help people navigate transitions and grief and loss in their own lives. And many times I'm talking to women who have never taken the time to sit down and look at all the things in their life that have been pushed aside because they've been taking care of their family, or they've been taking care of their friends. And it's hard to stop when you've been in this pattern and this belief that you need to care for everyone else before you care for yourself. So I'm just super excited to talk to everybody today. I want to go around and have my panel participants introduce yourselves and then just tell me a little bit about why this topic is important to you and what you do. So let's start with Michele.
Okay. Hi, Michele D'Amico here. I am the founder of Veta Consultants, which is a coaching executive coaching firm in Los Angeles. And I also run a women's group, and of which Hillary is part of. It's for women founders, which I just recently started. Very excited about that. This topic is very close to my heart as I just finished writing a book on women's voices and how individually and collectively, when we use our voice, when we find our voice and then we use it, we can change the status quo. We're very
Yeah,
powerful.
that is so true, Michele. I appreciate that insight, and I really look forward to you sharing more during our discussion today. So thank you. How about Barb? I would love for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Barb NANGLE. I'm a boundaries coach, a speaker, and a podcaster. And I am a former rescuer, fixer, savior, overgiver, codependent, enabling person who is now a boundaries coach. And I coach who I call former me. So I help professional women who are overwhelmed people pleasers learn how to say no without guilt and shame, and so they can finally put themselves first and stop focusing on other people. And I'm here to tell you that once you learn how to have healthy boundaries and put yourself first, it doesn't mean you stop giving. I actually donate more hours per week in community service hours now than I ever did before I got into 12-step recovery, which is where I learned boundaries. But I do it strategically rather than at the drop of a hat. I do it by choice rather than by compulsion. And I do it after filling my cup first so that I pour from the overflow rather than the empty cup. And that's what I want for other women too.
Oh, boundaries. That is such an important topic, Barb. And thank you for your vulnerability and sharing how it or lack of boundaries showed up in your life and how you've been able to shift that and then help other people. Because I really believe that in order to be that coach or that person that empowers others, we have to do our own work first. So thank you so much. How about Rollie?
My name is Gigado Migunkwe, which means talking feather women, and that's my spirit name. I'm also known as Rollie ALLAIRE. I work with women with anxiety using holistic practices, including moon medicine, which encompasses crystals and essential oils, as well as the lunar cycle, energy healing, all of those tools. And why this topic is so important to me is that this is something that I have lived, as Barb has shared, and sometimes comes creeping back in my life. And so then I need to remember to reestablish my boundaries and figure out what it is that I need to be doing. And especially because I am in the helping field, as many of us are. And sometimes it gets easy to get lost in the art of doing. And so I've had ailing parents and in-law parents, and now I have my mom and have grandchildren. And so it's easy to get stuck in the middle of all the things. And when this topic came up, it was like, oh, this is a perfect reminder of what it is that I've realigned again this summer and have gotten back on the path of having those boundaries set and being able to stay focused on what I need to do and what I choose to do when I choose to do it. Thank you for this.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the reminder that it's not that we just fix that overcommitment and it never happens again. It's an ongoing thing that we need to work on and remind ourselves because these are patterns that we established early in life, right? And so oftentimes what I notice in my own life is when I start becoming stressed and I have so much going on in my life, I revert back to taking care of everyone else, and all of a sudden, I'm sick and I'm exhausted and I can't figure out what's wrong until I take a moment to pause and, oh, oops, where am I in this equation? So thank you for sharing that. Erica, I would love to hear a little bit about you.
Hi, I am Erica Marchant. I'm known as the voice of resilience. I'm a chef, an author, and a podcaster and a public speaker. I do a bunch of different things. I also co-own Code One Barbecue in Wilmington, Massachusetts. It's a barbecue restaurant with my husband. We started the venture together about 5 years ago, and we've been on a tremendous journey ever since. This topic is so important to me because I am the epitome of being so busy all of the time and having to do so much and never making time for myself. I've been on a 2-decade-long journey of self-healing and spiritualism and trying to find my own center, and realizing that the past that I came from, which was poverty, addiction, homelessness, all of that, does not have to define my future or my mindset, and that I don't have to spend all of my time being busy taking care of other people and worrying about other people and making sure everything else in the world is doing good and everybody is happy in order for me to find where I fit in and where I belong in life.
Yeah, I totally agree. And thank you for that. I mean, it's so easy to fall into that trap of keeping busy and trying to take care of everything around us, especially when we've had childhoods that have been traumatic, have been difficult for us to navigate. And I think it's wonderful that you've realized that it's time to do that healing and that personal growth and focus on yourself. I also love how well-rounded you are, a chef, an author, a podcaster. So thank you
That's part
very
of me
much.
trying to do too many things all at one time.
All right, I would love to start with the question, how does conditioning early in our life lead us to overcommitting? So let's start with Michele.
Yay. Wow, it has everything to do with us overcommitting. I think because whether we're conditioned socially, culturally, familiarly, we are conditioned in all of those ways to take care of others. That's where our worth is. And I can certainly speak from experience. I am the oldest daughter with a number of brothers and a younger sister. I'm the oldest daughter in a Italian Catholic family. And I was meant to be the caretaker. And that's where I found my worth for years and years. And that I thankfully have broken away from that conditioning, although definitely, like the rest of you, I fall back into it from time to time. But it definitely comes from that conditioning. We're from a very early age, we're taught to be, oh, let your brother have it, or oh, he's just being a boy and you need to be more giving, you need to be more accepting, and those things, it's all kinds of things that they tell us, and we're conditioned that way at a very early age. So I think it has everything to do with why we overcommit. We put
Yeah,
ourselves last. Yeah.
we do. And like you talked about, we assign our worth to how much we're giving to other people. And until we start to unlearn that, that is what we just fall back on, is we always need to be giving. We need to be there for others. And we see oftentimes self-care is selfish, but it's not. We have to care for ourselves. So thank you for that.
And let's face it, we're pretty strong. So
We
we
are.
tend to take on more than we should, but because we know we can, just throw that
We're
in
mom.
there. Okay.
How about Rollie? How does conditioning early in life lead us to overcommitting?
So for me, going back to Michele, is that I'm the oldest of 4 girls. I'm the oldest grandchild of my mom is the oldest of 13 kids. So I'm the oldest grandchild of all that connections. And then in my dad's side of the family, I'm the second oldest of that family line and of grandchildren. And so it was just easy to be that caretaker and the person who needed to look after all the people and learned behavior from my mom, but also coming from a home of dysfunction. And my dad was an alcoholic. So there was all those dynamics. Both my dad's side of the family and my mom's side of the family come from a long line of alcoholism and lots of different traumas and experiences. And it was just easy to just do all the things and be that caretaker. And for me, it was also about being able to be in control of the things that I could be in control of, because the rest of my world was uncontrollable. And so it also allowed me to be able to have that. And so for me, it was very much learned behavior. And so when I start moving into those patterns, it makes it easy for me to move back into taking control, doing all the things that I need to do so that things can try to run smoothly in a sometimes world of chaos.
I can completely relate to some of your story because I also grew up in a family with alcoholism. And you're right, you can't control the addict or the rest of the family. So, what can you control? What you do. And I don't know about you, but I wanted to make sure that everything was good with me. Like, I didn't cause any problems. I was the good child because I didn't want any more tension in the household. And so it's easy to start taking on that caretaking role. I want to take care of people so I can control something and so that nothing bad happens. How about Erica? How does conditioning earlier in life lead us to overcommitting?
So I think that your early life conditioning is very influential in who you become later in life, and especially when you're not aware of how that happens. As for someone like me, I grew up in poverty and homelessness. I was surrounded by addiction and alcoholism, and everything was always about making sure everything was okay, making sure everything looked okay, making sure nobody knew what was going on the outside, not talking about anything. There was a lot of enabling behavior that happened around me as well, where we didn't want to talk about all of the bad things that were happening. We're just going to allow it to happen and you're just going to ignore it. And there was a lot of conditional love and acceptance. And if you did things, if you helped out more, if you make sure you set the table every single night, then you were rewarded for that. And if you didn't, then you were punished for that. And I think that growing up in the society that many of us grew up in pre 2000s, right? We would say that was very prominent. There was a lot of reward for self-sacrifice. Like the more you gave and the more you did and the more exhausted you were, the more you were rewarded for that. And the more people would revere you for that because that's what, you were supposed to do. And I think we live in a world now, even today, where there's the 5 a.m. mindset. If you're not getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and working for 7 hours and then taking a tiny break and only seeing your family for 10 minutes and working for 20 more hours, you're not going to get ahead of the curve and you're not going to get ahead of the game. And all of that contributes to us, especially as women and nurturers, to then not be able to say no and want to be able to take care of everybody and protect everybody and keep us from feeling so guilty all of the time because we can't make all of those commitments.
Yeah, Erica, I would totally agree with that. We definitely are rewarded for staying busy, taking care of other people, and putting ourselves last. And that ends up causing burnout. And you brought up the word enabling, and there's such a fine line between being there for someone and caring about them and then the enabling. And I understand that because I also grew up with addiction in my household. And it took me a long time to realize that some of my behavior not so healthy. And I was enabling the addict or whoever it was in my life to continue their behavior and to continue not healing because it was comfortable for me to caretake, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yep, keeps you like in that box where you know what you know,
Yep.
nothing
In
more.
that comfortable, uncomfortable spot. Yeah,
Yes.
Right.
that's familiar.
If I could add one thing, you touched on it, is that I feel like as girls growing up, we have to work for the love and work for that acceptance and that love, where the boys don't necessarily have to do that, or certainly not
Yeah.
in the same way.
That's a good point. Barb, it is your turn. How has conditioning early in your life led to overcommitting?
Yeah, I think I have to put my sociologist hat on here today and say we can't ignore the context of patriarchy and capitalism and racism in contributing to all these factors, and that it plays out in our families. And I also come from intergenerational family dysfunction. There's a history of mental health and substance use disorders in myself and in my extended family. And I actually was just doing some 12-step work the other day, trying to get at like, how did this pattern develop? And one of the things was my dad, first of all, I am a capitalist. I have a business, so I don't want to say like I'm totally anti-capitalism, but my dad owned a pharmacy that he opened when I was 8 years old, and I literally got off the bus and grew up in the store. And so I was voluntold to do things there. I started working there at 11 and I started working there for pay at 12. And my dad was a very critical person. And so that I was always like, how do I please dad and other people too? But he was like the major force when I was growing up. And so one of the things you can see is when people are productive. And so for me, I'm still to this day, as much as I've grown and changed and healed, productivity and a sense of accomplishment are two of the greatest feelings for me. And I wish they weren't. And I have been on a campaign for 10 years, but especially the last 2 years, of slowing down and taking breaks and resting. I just this year started putting a 1 hour lunch break Monday through Friday on my calendar. And it's because I feel driven. I feel good. You can see the fruits of my labor when I produce something. So for me, the overcommitment isn't just about helping and rescuing and fixing other people. It's doing like creating something or doing something that can be seen in the world. And I love being able to see the fruits of my labor because I can be like, yes, I accomplished something. And I think that a lot of it, like capitalism definitely is a big context here because we're socialized that we need money. And because we need to take that money and go to the marketplace and buy us the thing that is going to make us feel better. And it's a lie. And so that context plays out in our families and then socializes us individually to have these patterns that every single one of us here has.
Yeah, thank you for that. That is so true. It's interesting because all of us kind of share something in our lives that's occurred in the past, and it's led us to where we are today. And we've all admitted that we have been overcommitted. We haven't nurtured ourselves like we wish we would have. And now we're looking back and wishing things would have been different. Thankfully, we have the choice today to choose differently. I want to ask another question of all of you is, when you're feeling burned out, overwhelmed, overcommitted, why is it so hard to set those boundaries? We'll start with Michele.
I think that goes back to really the first question, is it's so hard because our self-worth is tied into doing all these things and being all of people pleasing and doing all of these things. And whether that is from our family, our culture, the patriarchy, all of those things. So I think that it goes back to the same old story. And then we don't have our own voice anymore. We've lost it. And we don't even maybe know where to find it at that point. And so how do we use it then to go, wait a minute, I got to draw this boundary? Because that's a whole nother thing we have to do, that we have to learn. And so I think that it goes back to the same thing. And when I get burned out, I've learned to be able to draw the boundaries. However, that was not always the case. You weren't allowed to be burned out. And certainly in my life growing up, you weren't really allowed to be burned out. It wasn't a thing. You just did it, and you did as much as you were asked to do and more, just because that was your job. That's your self-worth. That's where the worth came in, right? And I think a lot of women, you still have that in the workforce. People pleasing all the time. It's hard to get ahead in other ways because we don't draw the boundaries. We don't use our voice. We don't even know what the voice is. We don't have our own agency anymore. And so it definitely spills over into, and then we become exhausted. And everybody's, why are you so tired? But we do. We become exhausted and we don't take care of ourselves.
Yeah, that's so true. So looking back, if you would have tried to set a boundary earlier in life, what would have been the consequence? Because
Huge,
there's reasons we
huge.
don't set them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did try as a younger self because I looked around me and my brothers didn't have to do any of this stuff. And I had to do it all. And I had to babysit the young kids and I had an older brother who didn't have all those kinds of things where I would go, wait a minute. And I try to push back, but I got punished for it. And I was not a good girl at that point. So I was no longer the good girl because I pushed back. And of course, we want to be the good girl. We want to be the good child because they're feeding us, housing us, everything. It's just human nature. And so then I was no longer the good girl. So I did try to push back, but learned very early on that wasn't going to fly. And so I started, using alcohol and smoking pot and doing things that, to self-medicate and get away from it because I couldn't change it as a kid. I couldn't change it.
And life at that point feels out of control, and we need something to feel better, even if it just numbs us for a short period of time. It's the only tool we have at that point.
Yeah. Just take us away to some other place and it's
Yep.
fine, right?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. How about Erica? The same question. Why is it so hard to set boundaries? And the follow-up question that I asked Michele is, what was the consequence if you did set boundaries?
So setting boundaries, I think, is so hard because it makes we feel bad when we have to say no to people or when we can't do the things that we want to do. And times when you make promises that you can't commit to or you can't keep because at the time you thought you could, but now you can't. And trying to put that boundary in place, it's almost like your body and your mind is, no, don't do that because something's bad's going to happen. The consequence of you setting a boundary is something bad is going to happen. A consequence is just the result of an action that you take, right? So yes, something bad's going to happen, but something good will also happen because of that. You will have a bad consequence that you have to deal with, but then the outcome of that is now you're listening to your own voice, you're nurturing your own self, you're being true to who you are, and you're taking the time to know your own values and establish that this isn't going to happen for us. And really the bad thing is the other person or the other whatever it may be in life that's hurting you. And I think that's why we struggle with setting boundaries so much. We don't want to disappoint people and we don't want to feel bad because don't we feel enough shame as it is already and enough guilt everywhere we go, and doing that just makes it even worse and compounds it. And your mind can be a very difficult place.
Yeah. And I also think so many times, at least in my life, like I didn't want to set a boundary because I was worried I would lose one more person in my life or that person wouldn't like me. So it was that abandonment. I don't want to experience that. So I'm not going to set a boundary and I'm just going to try and take care of everyone and disregard myself. Thank
Exactly.
you. Rollie, how about you? Why is it so hard to set boundaries and what were the consequences when you tried to set boundaries in the past?
For me, it was so very much, I've had a little bit of a mix of it, but so growing up, I was a reader. Setting a boundary for me would be like, I don't want to have to clean my room right now. I'm in the middle of this really good book and I'd go and hide out in my room and I would read, or sometimes I would hide out in the bathroom and read instead of doing the dishes. But I was also the person who was still responsible for doing all the things. But around 14, Child Protective Services became involved with my family. And so one of the things that I was very fortunate, and that was actually a fortunate thing, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was for my family, but not for me, because that is where I started my healing journey of being able to learn that the dynamics that were going on in my family were not normal, and that's not the way that I should have been looking after. I shouldn't have been looking after my sisters. I shouldn't have been doing all the things that I was doing, that I needed to make sure that I was taking time for myself. So from the age of 14, I started learning how to be able to do things. There was still some resistance because I was living at home still. But one of the things that I was able to learn to do at around that age was being able to start setting some of no, I'm not okay with that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to look after my sisters. There was also the consequences. There was all the challenges that came with that. I still fought the good kid. I was the kid who in high school, I was the designated driver because I needed to make sure that everybody So I wasn't the person who was drinking. I was the person making sure that everybody else was taken care of. So even though I would be trying to set some of those limits at home and some of those boundaries at home, externally, it was like still that need and that importance of being recognized as the good kid and the person who is that they can still count on and that they can rely on, and carrying that into adult life. And so it took some time for me to be able to do that. And like I said at the beginning, is that sometimes life gets really crazy. And then I start following some of those other patterns and start going back to some of those things. And when I recognize it, I'm able to say, okay, whoa, just a minute, slow down. Where am I taking some time for myself and making sure that I'm okay? And I think the biggest crux for me was 10 years ago, was just over 10 years ago before I started my own business, was that I was in mental health and addictions. And so like I would take on more clients and I'd take on more clients and take on more clients in the field that I was in. There was lots of wait lists and I would try and navigate all those things, plus still look after my family, still look after all the things that were going on. And when I hit a wall and I was unable to work under psychiatric care because of my anxiety and depression, it was like, I need to take a step back. I need to figure out what it is that's going on. And in that 9 months, that was my biggest aha moment. Although I would work with clients and help set boundaries and help teach them how to be able to do these things, it wasn't something that I was always doing in my own life. And so when I hit that wall, it was like, no, these are the times that I need to be doing. So I'm able to recognize things a lot faster when things get chaotic as opposed to before.
And that's a wonderful place to be because you have gotten to the point that you can recognize that. And I was thinking about when you were talking about your childhood, just the heaviness of being the responsible one. And I can relate in my own life, trying to be responsible so that you're the good child. And that really is a heavy load to carry for us in our life. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to go on to Barb and I want to hear from you. Why is it so hard to set boundaries and what are the consequences or have been the consequences in your life for setting them?
Yeah, I was actually in my 50s when I got into 12-step recovery specifically for codependence. In my estimation, boundaries are the antidote to codependence. So when I first started even learning about boundaries and thinking about setting them, I felt like I was going to die. Like I literally felt like my life was under threat. And it's because my identity was I am a helper person. This is who I am, this is what I do. And so it wasn't just my self-worth, it was my very identity. And I didn't want to be seen as a bad person. And so to me, a bad person says no and is unhelpful. And one of the things that I have come to understand is that the main reason that people do not set boundaries or cave on their boundaries is because of the feelings that arise, typically guilt and shame. And those feelings are so powerful for them that they can't withstand them because they don't learn how to manage and process and express feelings in a healthy manner. As when you grow up in a dysfunctional family, feelings are not allowed. And so you just can't handle those feelings. And what I've learned is that the guilt that we feel is proportional to the amount of self-abandonment that we do. And so what we're doing is we're constantly focusing our energy out on other people, places, and things and trying to control the world. We're completely ignoring the internal world, not paying any attention to us. And that is one of the many ways that we self-abandon. And so the antidote to that is to stop abandoning yourself. And one easy way to do that is to figure out like what is important to me. For example, like what are my top 5 values, and then put those at the forefront of your life. Like what matters to me. And when I start acting in accordance with my values, not just saying they're my values, but living my values, that's a really good way to stop abandoning yourself because your values come up in you for a reason. And I think when I think of the idea of consequences of setting the boundaries as a kid, it wouldn't have even occurred to me to set a boundary as a kid. As I said, I was in my 50s when I even learned about boundaries and started setting them. And then I felt like I was going to die. And I was a grown woman who like owned a home and had a career. So the idea of being a kid, but you know what happens I have been lucky enough that most of the people that I started setting boundaries with, if they didn't come along with it, they just faded away in my life. But I have lots of clients who literally lose people, who end up having to cut people off or get cut off by people, because if you've been pleasing someone your entire life and you've been making their life easier and accommodating them, they don't like it when you stop doing that. And the reality is, yes, it's painful when that happens. But what I tell my clients is when those people move out of the way, your real people can now get to you, the people who are both give and take people. So if you've been a giver or an overgiver, you attract takers and overtakers. But when you
Mhm.
stop doing that, you start attracting people who both give and take. I could obviously go on for hours since this is what I do, but I will stop there.
Thank you for everything you shared. That's so important, all of these conversations. I want to ask because all of us have come from a background that where there was some dysfunction and we learned to overcommit. We learned to enable, but each one of us has talked about our own growth. So I really want to hear from everybody about how today you nurture yourself because it's easy, and we've all done it, to abandon ourselves, which you had brought up, Barb. But how do you nurture yourself today, especially during the really difficult times? So let's start with Michele.
Gosh, I have a lot of different ways. I surround myself with people I love and people who are givers and takers as well. I surround myself with those kinds of people now, especially women. Oh my gosh, I have just some great female people in my life now. I get massages all the time. I love massages and I play pickleball. So I get out there and get the physicality going. And it's really very social as well. That to me, that's my happy place because I don't focus on anything else but the game. And so that's a lot of fun. And I do a lot of writing, and all of those things nurture me. And then being with my daughter. I spend as much time as I can with my daughter. She lives in Portland, but I visit her, she visits me, and there, no matter what we do together, it's so nurturing for me. I hope it is for her. So nurturing for me and a real happy place for me. So all of those things work for me.
Thank you for sharing. And what I love is when I asked that question and you answered it, I could feel the joy in your heart when you
Mm.
talked about the ways that you nurture yourself versus the ways that you were overcommitting in the past that we discussed. So thank you for sharing those. How about Erica?
So I live a pretty busy, we all do, lifestyle. So I make it a point every single day to wake up a little bit earlier than everybody else in the house. And I just sit in the silence, in the peace and the quiet. I will do yoga and stretch and exercise and get all of that done. And sometimes I can't get that done before the kids get up for school. So I'll wait for them to leave for school to do that. But if I have to wait for them to leave for school, then I still take that time. I know I have emails. I know I have all kinds of things waiting for me, and I have to make phone calls, and I have to go in and open a restaurant, and I know I have to do all of that. But in the morning, I need my time for my exercise and for my peace and quiet. And I like to sit outside. It's getting a little too cold for that now, so I can't have like my coffee on the patio in the morning, but I really enjoy sitting outside in nature and in my own yard and just listening to the birds and watching them and watching the squirrels and thinking about just everything around me. And the same for at night when the stars are out and the moon is out. I love to sit with them and I just express my intentions for the day and my gratitude. And I share all of that. And I just thank the universe for everything that I have in my abundance in my life. And that just centers me completely. I have really great friends in my life and I have my beautiful family and I love them. But the most important part for nurturing me is getting that quiet time alone where no one is bidding for my attention. No one needs me to do anything. No one's asking anything of me. And I can just be with myself and in my own head.
I think ritual is so important, and especially how we start our day and how we end our day. I love that you have certain things that you do for both of those. I also have a gratitude practice at night. Every time I put my head on the pillow, I think about what I'm grateful for during the day, what I'm proud of, because some days are hard. We all have those difficult days where I didn't accomplish anything. You got out of bed, you took a shower, whatever it is, but it's important to remember those things, especially when we have had a day where we're overcommitting and we aren't taking care of ourselves. So I also think about what brought me joy, because I think joy really is so important in our life, but so often we forget about it. And it's the little things like my dog just wanting to snuggle up next to me, or a phone call with my son. But I think those things are so important to highlight and to end our day on, just like you were talking about your practice with gratitude as well. So thank you for sharing. How about Rolly?
So for me, I have a number of different things that I put in place. Like Erica, it's starting to get a little bit cold in our neck of the woods. We haven't had any snow yet, so cross my fingers that we have a little bit longer with no snow, but I'm pretty sure it's coming pretty quickly. But it's being in my yard. Like Erica, just love being able to be in my yard. I've added 3 new flower beds that I got to tend to and look after this summer. And everybody else in my household or what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Because I love being able to have that, having it grow and having it get bigger. And this year especially was even more special because my 2.5-year-old grandson was so excited to help me clean the weeds and do all the things. And then he would get super excited when there was a flower that would bloom and all that excitement. And I'm blessed with being able to be with my grandchildren, are like literally right here. So I get to see them pretty much every day. And so I have a 5-month-old granddaughter as well. So him and his sister are both around. I've got some heart grandbabies as well that I don't get to see as often, but Clark and Claire are definitely my medicine. And so as a grandma, I always thought that was like really super. My kids were always like the most important love in my life. And then my grandchildren came along and it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that there was like a deeper love that you can actually have. And I don't even know how to explain it beyond that. But just being able to have that, for me, it's about being able to just go and soak in the tub, even if it's only for 5 minutes, being able to have a chance to read. And whether that's audiobooks, I prefer to read a book. But even if I'm traveling, so today I did a lot of traveling. So there was the last couple of days I've had audiobooks going. So it gives me that chance to be able to read. Sometimes it's just the silence, just being able to sit in the quiet. But I'm also surrounded by people who I can lean on as well when things are not always the best. And so because life is life. And so just being able to have that give and take. So lots of things that I'm able to pull out, and those are really important. But my grandbabies are my daily medicine.
I love that. And I really appreciate that you brought up just having, even if you only have 5 minutes, to just take a pause, because sometimes we forget to breathe and life just gets overwhelming and we are in that cycle of overcommitting. And if we can just step away from whatever it is for a moment, or just close our eyes, put our feet on the ground, center, and just breathe, that's really important. So thank you for bringing that up. Barb, how about you?
Yeah, I have a lot. So I would say the largest category is what I call conscious contact with my higher power. So I I have certain prayers I say every morning and every night, and then I pray multiple times during the day, including when I eat. I meditate twice a day, every day. I journal. I've actually been keeping a gratitude journal. This past July was 25 years. And that has
Wow.
been just absolutely incredible, life-changing, and really changed my perspective on life, especially in the first few years. I spend some portion of every day with my sweetheart, and he definitely energizes me. I go to 12-step recovery meetings 2 to 3 times a week, and then I also connect with other people in recovery, either as a sponsor or as a sponsee. Those are definitely very nurturing. I would say the place in the world where I feel the most whole and the most me is in a 12-step recovery meeting. And I read for pleasure now. For the longest time, all my reading, whether it was physical books, ebooks, books on audio, was always like either personal development or business development. And I finally realized, like, every time when I envision my future, I'm laying on the couch reading, like I can start that now. So I've been using my library card a lot, and I use the Hoopla app from the library to get free books. So I'm always I have 3 library books right now. I love to get together with friends and play board games. I love laughing. One of my favorite things to do with my friends is to have backyard bonfires. And that is just so much fun. I also live across the street from the New Haven Harbor. And so now it's getting a little too cold to walk on the beach, but I love to walk on the beach. Though my favorite place in the world to walk is in the woods. There's just something about being in the woods. So there's many things. I think a lot of it has to do with some kind of connection, whether it's a connection to my higher power, an individual human being, the larger fellowship of my 12-step recovery programs, or connection to the stories that I'm reading or listening to.
Thank you for sharing. There's so many great little tidbits in there that how you nurture yourself and really shift from that overcommitting to focusing on what you need as an individual. Thank you. So I want to ask one last question. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, just one, about overcommitting, taking care of yourself, nurturing you, what would it be? So let's start with Michele.
Do it. Take care of yourself. Absolutely. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, because you know the consequences of not.
You're enough.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. How about Erica?
So I would say do what you love and do what you want to do, regardless of how anybody else feels about it, because everybody's going to have an opinion.
Yeah, that is so true. How about Rollie?
So for me, it is one of the things that I share with my clients all the time is no is a complete sentence. And it doesn't matter what anybody else's reaction to that no is, it's what it is that feels for you. Being able to take care of yourself and doing what you need to do, because no is a complete sentence and you don't have to give an explanation.
Yeah, that's great. And Barb?
Yeah, I would say you're enough. You matter, and you don't have to do anything to be worthy. Just your very existence, like the fact that you were born, means that you're worthy. And that also what Erica said about do what you love, like what brings you joy. It brings you joy for a reason. Do it.
Yeah. This is questions to all of you. Do you feel like your childhood and the things that you went through helped you now nurture yourself more than if things would have been like easier when you were growing up? Do you feel like your struggles have helped you understand the importance of the self-care and nurturing? Michele?
Yes, I think a combination of that and getting to the point where I was so exhausted. And so when I'm going, oh, no, I got to take care of myself. I've got to do things that matter to me. Yeah. I tell my daughter this too. This is the only life we have that we know of. There might be others, but we don't know about it. This is the only thing that we have that we know exists, and take care of yourself. Enjoy. Find those moments of joy, and nobody should tell you how to live your life. It's not anybody else's life but yours. And yeah, I do think I may not have gotten there had I not had the childhood I had,
Yeah.
or maybe I'd gotten there sooner.
I love that because so many times we think that our past is our future. We look at that chapter of our life and we forget that there's a whole story and that we don't have to be just that chapter. We can move beyond it and create whatever we want in our life. And that always, if we make that choice, it looks like growth and healing and abundance and self-care. So thank you so much for that. How about you, Erica?
I definitely believe that my past is instrumental in shaping who I am today and coming out of that 100%. I feel like I wouldn't be who I am if it weren't for the things that I had gone through. And going through those things, I came out of that on the other side because I'm here to show other people that's possible and that your past doesn't have to define your future.
Yeah,
So
that's so true. Such a great example of showing individuals, I think all of us, that your life can be different. It doesn't have to equal your past. So thank you for that. Barb, how about you?
Yeah, I have about a 90-minute runway into my day every day with all the rituals I was talking about, and that
Mhm.
has been hard earned. And the reason I have that is because I will be a jerk. I will not be a pleasant person if I don't have that. And so it's incredibly meaningful to me. And the way that I think about it, like in 12-step recovery, we talk about becoming happy, joyous, and free. And I think about like someone who grew up in a family that was like healthy and nurturing and affirming and all that. They're happy, joyous, and free, and they don't know anything other than that. But then there's someone like me that grew up in dysfunction and clawed their way to learn how to be happy, joyous, and free. Who's going to
Yeah,
appreciate happy, joyous, and free more? Me! And
right.
so I think it has everything to do with it. And as Erica was saying, we get to show other people you like I have changed. It is possible. Like when you hear my story and you hear your story in my story, it gives you hope. And I just think that's one of the most powerful things in the world.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing. And then we're going to wrap up with you, Rolly.
For me, it's very similar to what everyone else is saying, is that definitely that has given me a different outlook, and knowing that I have that I actually can see that black and white, but I also have had a lot of, so not only just the addictions, but even like the health concerns and things like that. I'm predisposed to heart issues, and it's very familial in my mom's side of the family, a little bit of my dad's, but not as much as my mom's. And so my mom had a heart attack at a very young age, and being able to have those connections of knowing how to be able to take care of myself, so that hopefully I am able to avoid having those massive heart attacks that have actually
Yeah.
killed off some of my mom's siblings, and been able to stay away from some of the addictions within our family. Other addictions, not so much, but just being able to like take care of, finding different ways of being able to take care of myself, but also being able to have this outlook of being able to have a different approach or have a different way of being that I can actually
Mhm.
pass on to my grandchildren, right? So
Yeah.
being able to get to that next generation of being
And
able to be more healthy.
and that is a beautiful gift if we can pass on our own healing to younger generations. So, thank you all. I really appreciate your vulnerability here today, sharing parts of your life, sharing your wisdom and insight that have come throughout your life. So, just thank you very much. I can't tell you how much this conversation has meant to me. And I look forward to connecting with all of you again soon. And I think Sophia is going to jump back on now.
Thank you,
Yes, I am.
Dawn.
Yes, and thank you, Dawn. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for Erica and Michelle and Barb, and of course, our beautiful Rollie, but especially Michelle, Barb, and Erica, because this is your first panel discussion. And I just want to also acknowledge Dawn, who's done a wonderful job of facilitating this first panel discussion for her as well. So thank you. I've been sitting
Thank
in the
you.
background listening to all the wonderful tips and amazing tips that everyone's giving. And it's so true on how it's very easy for us to overcommit ourselves and forget about who we are. So I've listened to all these incredible tips, been taking lots of notes, and we'll be coming back to watch the replay. And for everyone out there who is watching, do yourself a favor, click on these links below, reach out to these amazing women who have just given up an hour of their time. And even if it is just for a chat, if you have any questions, also put them in the comments and we will pass them on. So again, thank you. Whilst everyone is there checking out the links for everyone else, do check out sacredyou.love. put a / join free. Come and join us in our village for free, where we go live with these panel discussions, wisdom circles. We have archetype circles and also our special interest tribes, which our amazing Rollie is the host of the Moon Medicine Circle. I'd love to know from you a little bit, Rollie, about your tribe, but how do you use your moon medicine to help nurture yourself?
Actually, that's a beautiful question. So Moon Medicine Circle is all about, like I said, the moon medicine tools that I use is the lunar cycle, the essential oils, crystals, energy healing, all the holistic things that I've actually been able to put in my toolbox over the years, and being able to like finding those balances and those patterns. So like I said, over the course of the summer, it's easy because I can let go in the garden and do all those things. And that is part of my cycle. That is part of what it is that's going on. So in the winter months, that's when I have to be paying more attention to what is it that I'm doing. So am I taking baths? Am I doing all those things? And really being able to nurture myself. But yeah, so we use all those different tools in moon medicine. And so on Friday evenings, Eastern time, and Saturday mornings, Australian time, and then everything else in between, I host that circle through Sacred You.
Thank you. And I look forward to your one coming up tomorrow. So thank you for that. And of course, we have so many other tribes and wisdom circles and archetype circles. And talking of wisdom circles, our beautiful Dawn is coming back in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks for your very first wisdom circle, Dawn, unburdening your heart, a healing journey towards joy. I'm really looking forward to that, to being able to watch that. So thank you very much. And again, thank you everyone for being here. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.